Good morning and welcome to First Mover, your first global look at today's action in Bitcoin, blockchain, and digital assets. I'm your host, Jen Tenassi, here with my co-host, the TIE Director of Content, Lawrence Lewitton. Happy Monday, Lawrence.
Happy Monday to you.
Wonderful to see you. I hope you had a nice rested weekend.
Doing my best. Everything is more rested now that I use AI.
All right, we're going to park that AI note there and take a look at the markets quickly. Let's see what's happening with Bitcoin this morning. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index is currently at 29,220, down just over 2% in the last 24 hours and closer to $29,000 than I think we've seen all month. Let's take a look at Ether. The CoinDesk Ether price ETX index is at 1,851. Down about 1.2% this morning. In DeFi assets, the DFX CoinDesk's DeFi index is down 4% at 122. All right. Let's talk about Worldcoin, a decentralized open source protocol co-founded by OpenAI CEO Sam Altman launched its World token and Mainnet this morning. Joining us to discuss is Tiago Sada, Tools for Humanity head of product and Worldcoin core team member. Welcome to the show, Tiago.
Hello, thank you for having me, Jen and Lawrence.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. You know, we've been talking about Worldcoin building up towards the launch. It launched this morning. Now there's a software developer kit for developers. The token, I believe, is surging 60% this morning. Talk to us about what we can expect from this launch.
Yeah, so it's a super exciting day for all of us that have been working on the project and the entire community. And there's really a bunch of stuff across the board that is launching, right? I think you mentioned it. For developers, there's opening up the SDK for anyone to be able to use WorldID. We announced a new orb world tour where starting this week, there's a bunch of orbs in a lot of new cities, and we're increasing from about 200 to up to 1,500 orbs by the end of the year. There's obviously in the markets where it's available, the token has launched, and a bunch of other things across the stack. So it's been a really busy day for the entire community, putting out documents and just processing all of the announcements that have been made. But it's been a really, really exciting couple of hours.
Okay, what does Worldcoin actually do, and why do you need to get my biometric data?
Yeah, well, I think that's the first thing, right? We do not need to get your biometric data. All of that can just be processed locally on the orb, and you can get your World ID verified without anyone having to have access to that, which is super cool. The whole premise of Worldcoin is that it's going to be the largest network of unique humans. And so when you sign up, you get something that is called a World ID, and you can verify that in different ways to show that you're a real and unique person. The main way to do that today is with a device called the orb. And so now that you have that World ID that proves that you're a unique person, it allows you to do a bunch of things, right? It almost gives you like digital birthrights simply for being a unique person.
But why do I need a coin? Here's the thing. Why do I need a coin to do that? Why don't I just show up someplace, number one? Number two is, okay, you have this orb. What is it? Where is it? What is it? What's it collecting? And why should I trust you? The same, your founder does AI. I don't know if you're watching the news, but there are like people in Hollywood right now freaking out over what basically your CEO is doing to and what ChatGPT and everything else AI is doing to the entertainment industry. There are people worried about their jobs. So why should I trust you to now collect my iris data that you're not going to somehow, I don't know, use it for other things?
Yeah, that's a great question, because the real answer is you shouldn't. You shouldn't trust us, and you shouldn't really trust anyone, right? That's the whole ethos of crypto. And so that is why the orb hardware is open source. That is why the World ID protocol is open source. As you can actually just go and see like how everything is set up. And the setup is quite simple. Imagine your World ID is your passport. The orb, all the orb does is it stamps it as verified or not verified, depending on whether you were found to be a unique and real person at the orb. But your biometrics is not actually the identity, right? And that is part of why it took such a long time, many years of research and development, because the system had to be private, it had to be able to be open source, it had to have all of these properties that are much difficult to build, especially at scale. Right? And so today, Worldcoin is, for example, the largest deployer, as far as we know, of zero-knowledge proofs at scale. Right? And so there's just been a lot of fundamental work that has to have happened. And the really cool thing is there's all these documentation, especially now in the new website that's launched today, where you can see everything that is open source, everything that is in the process of being open source. And you can just audit all of these different things without having to trust Tools for Humanity or any other entity in the Worldcoin network.
But why do I need the Worldcoin? Like, I still don't understand. What does it actually do? The Worldcoin. Like, what do I do with it? I get it. Now what? I verify
so the Worldcoin token. The Worldcoin token is ownership of the Worldcoin network, right? And so, as I was saying, the Worldcoin network. Well, it's ownership in the network. For now, we imagine that it will be used for governance, but that will be up to the community. And there's a lot more examples of these things in the documents that are available on the website.
So am I investing in essentially, am I investing into if I buy Worldcoin token now, am I investing into the future of the Worldcoin network? And if so, here we have now, for instance, in the United States, and I notice you're not available in the United States, is it basically selling a security?
Yeah, well, we're not really interested right now in people buying the token. We are focused on getting it to people. We do not sell the token. The foundation, the Tools for Humanity, the community, the tokens are given to individuals for free. What they choose to do with that is up to them. We're just focused on having the most egalitarian distribution that we can possibly have.
And Tiago, why aren't you available in the United States?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'm glad you bring it up. Honestly, it's just it's lack of regulatory clarity. We would love to be able to offer the entire Worldcoin ecosystem in the US. We try to be super respectful of every country's regulations. And so just out of abundance of caution, there are certain parts of the project that are not available in the US.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, there is regulatory clarity now, and that is everything's a security.
Lawrence. I want to actually ask you about some other jurisdictions. CoinDesk staff tried to access the white paper on multiple devices in Greece, India, Italy, and the UK, and they saw a message saying that the content was geo-fenced. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, no, it was probably just a technical glitch in the morning. We, as part of being responsible, we try to be very careful about what is accessible in each part of the world. There's probably just some glitches as everything was getting deployed in the morning, but shouldn't be a huge deal.
So it should be available there.
Yeah, I don't remember the countries that you mentioned off the top of my head, but in the vast majority of the world, the white paper website should be accessible.
Okay, so I'm sorry I keep harping on this, but I'm still sort of trying to figure out what Worldcoin, like what it actually does other than verifies me as a human being and not a ChatGPT creation. What exactly does, like, what's the network set out to do? Like, okay, I buy into the network or I'm part of the network, then what?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a bit like saying, like, I don't really get the iPhone. Like, it's just a smartphone. What is it beyond a smartphone?
Well, I know, right? An iPhone. I could call people on it. That's the start. Like, I knew I definitely maybe didn't have any other apps, but the important part was I knew I definitely could call one. You know, I could call people. I knew there was in existence apps and things like that. But like, what's the orientation of the network? Like, you know, some are oriented towards financial transactions, others are peer-to-peer. Like, what exactly does this thing do?
Exactly, yeah. So I think proof of person is a very important primitive that we've never had on the internet. It's already a problem today, right? You can see basically every social media website has struggled with it for the past 10 years. And as you mentioned, that is just getting much more important as we move into the age of AI. And so there's three problems specifically that we think proof of personhood can help tackle. Number one is this problem of bots, right? How do you distinguish humans from people from bots online? Number two is as you start getting to this age of AI, how do you fairly distribute all of the economic benefits that these AIs will bring to the world? And then number three, how can you start to think about democratizing AI technology, right? How can you make it not just accessible to everyone, but also let everyone participate in its governance? Because these will probably be systems that are too important and too big for one person or one company to control.
So Sam helps make the problem and then the solution too. Sorry.
Well, I think that not even Sam would say that AI is only going to happen because of OpenAI. I think that AGI is something that's going to happen, and it's going to happen soon, regardless of any individual company. And the opportunities and the challenges that come with that are very real, regardless of who's doing it.
All right. Tiago Vitalik published a blog this morning in support of the Worldcoin project. He outlined some issues that he sees, or I should probably rather say challenges he sees for the project and proof of personhood more broadly. One of them is centralization. He talks about the actual physical orbs being created by the Worldcoin Foundation. The general public doesn't have any visibility into these orbs. Of course, the software is open source, but we have these physical devices. And he points out to the fact that the WorldCoin Foundation could still have the ability to insert a backdoor that could create fake human identities. What's your response to this? How are you thinking about challenges like this?
Totally. I think that Vitalik's article is amazing. I think it's a very balanced look at the benefits and the potential challenges of a system like WorldCoin. So I would invite everyone to read it. I think that in general, specifically when it comes to decentralization, it's obviously more difficult to decentralize something that happens in the real world versus something that is purely digital. With the orb specifically, you actually don't need to decentralize the production of orbs. You just need to have many people or many companies be able to produce devices similar to the orb, right? And this is one of the big reasons why the orb hardware is open source. It's not just for transparency or for security. It's actually to make it a lot easier for other people that want to develop hardware that is compatible with the protocol to operate with it. And so you can think of the orb as the first device that is supported by the protocol. But while there will hopefully be a lot of transparency and accountability about how those devices are made and operated, at a protocol level, anyone should be able to manufacture devices that connect to the protocol.
Except we've seen this happen in a weird way before with bridges, right? Like when we think about chain-to-chain bridges, things like that, those have always been the weakest point in any situation involving blockchain, right? Those are always been the ones that get hacked the most. So here, essentially, if you think about it, it's a bridge between the meat space and the cyberspace. And isn't this kind of a weak point?
I would actually think it is much more similar to an oracle. And I think that there's at this point, we understand what makes oracles work, what not. And there's the approaches are quite different than those to the bridges. At the end of the day, the really cool thing is that WorldID is a protocol. And if there are superior verifications other than the orb, those will succeed on the same protocol. And so it's just a matter of time. But at least from the past 3 years, our experience trying a lot of different methods, testing in a lot of different places, we are quite confident, as Vitalik points out, that there is just a lot of fundamental advantages to this approach of the orb.
Now, say we sort out all of these challenges, we sort out all of the regulatory issues we have in multiple jurisdictions all over the world. How do you actually get these orbs out there? How do you get people to scan their eyeballs? How do you get people to actually use this and make WorldCoin a viable project?
Yeah, so this is one of the most common questions is like, how are you going to fund all the orbs, right? When you actually do the math, you don't really need that many devices to get a lot of people onboarded. When you see the rate at which people are signing up, you need somewhere in the order of magnitude of 50,000 orbs operating to be able to get to the billions of people. And so the bottlenecks of the project are not where you would actually think if you were just looking at it on the surface.
What do you do if you don't have an eyeball?
Yeah, well, this is part of why it's really important that the protocol at the end of the day is just an identity protocol, right? Where you can get verifications. Just as you can get an OR verification, today, for example, you can also just verify your phone number, and that gives you a certain type of verification. And so as the protocol matures, there will be different types of verifications that people can get. And Vitalik actually dives into this in in his article as well, where he talks about how complementing different types of verifications will really give you that full picture of a person.
It'd be neat if those orbs could also do like eyeball check, like you could check my eyes and things like that. Like save a trip to the optometrist.
maybe we'll think of that for a future version of the orb.
I think that's to make it useful.
Yeah, well, I would agree it's super useful today. You can just ask our friends at Twitter. I think they would really like it if every one of their users already have a World ID that was verified.
Those numbers will go down tremendously.
All right, Tiago, we're going to leave it there. Thanks so much for joining the show this morning, and congratulations on the launch.
Of course, thank you. Thank you, Jen, and great to meet you, Lawrence.
Good to see you.
Have a great week.
You too.
You too. That was Tiago Sada, Tools for Humanity, Head of Product and Worldcoin Core Team member. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Dogecoin rises after Twitter announces a rebrand, and Bitcoin is, of course, in the red. We took a look at that chart just a few minutes ago. Stay tuned for our crypto markets update next.
And we're in the last week of July. That means August, when everyone wants to go on vacation, everyone will be relaxing. But you know who's not relaxing this week? The Federal Reserve, the Bank of Japan, and the European Central Bank. They're all slated to announce interest rate decisions this very week. What will they be? And what will happen to the markets? Well, let's find out. Joining us now to discuss is Defiance ETF CEO, Sylvia Jablonski. Welcome back, Sylvia.
Thanks so much for having me. Good morning.
Glad to see you again. Look, we got Bitcoin going like around 29,000. We have a ton of options all clustered around the 30,000 mark. What's going on? This was supposed to be a quiet week, all things being equal. I thought we'd stick to 30,000. Am I panicking a little too much?
Yeah, it seems like we go in these erratic cycles with Bitcoin, and they more or less seem to be kind of like reattaching themselves to tech stocks. So we saw tech stocks fall a little bit last week, and that came around Tesla and Netflix, and it goes back to that. I think just risk off go back to the sidelines. Let's wait and see what the Fed does, until they kind of give us the all clear on no more rate hikes, or maybe, one and done, and then holding them a little bit longer. I think we're just going to kind of sit in this, range bound area. And, really until we get some good news with Bitcoin, like I think, if we start getting some news around the filing for BlackRock, for example, or the conversion of Grayscale, for example, is going in the right path. That's something that'll kind of jack up the price of Bitcoin again. But I think in the absence of news, summertime doldrums, equities playing it kind of safe how they are around the Fed, it's not wholly unexpected. But I wouldn't panic, really. I mean, there's no reason to, think that it's kind of precipitously going to drop.
Just for disclosure, Grayscale owned by DCG for now. If you have $125 million, though, that could change, because it's also owns CoinDesk. But if you want to buy us for $125 million, you're more than welcome, apparently. But this one and done idea. Okay, so it seems the market is poised that way, that it's one and done. But the Fed is not saying that. They're like, no, what's this one and done nonsense? We said we're going to raise until we're happy with inflation. What makes you think that one and done will put inflation? Granted, we're at like 3% and change, but that's not one. That doesn't sound one and done to me.
It doesn't sound one and done, but there is a fine line that the Fed has to travel along here. So while we have to kind of listen to the Fed, right? I think it would be foolish if the Fed told us that they're going to raise rates 4 times to kind of ignore them, because the truth is they keep doing that, right? They keep doing what they're saying they're doing. But if you look at the data, it's starting to look compelling in terms of inflation actually coming down. And I think that there's a higher likelihood that the Fed will perhaps, although they're not, they're certainly not saying it, but if you have inflation data coming down, if you have the job market starting to, although it's super strong, it is starting to lighten up a little bit. Consumers are kind of like less impacted on the bottom line by their spending now. And I think, we sort of have to see, right? Because I think if the Fed managed to pull off this soft landing, right, I don't think that he now wants to, put his foot on the gas and just kind of hammer that out and throw us into a recession. Like we've come so far. So I think I do believe that the Fed will hold rates higher for longer, and that will bring inflation out of the system. I don't think that they're going to start going on a rate hike campaign. I don't see it for them.
And nobody's talking about the fact that they still have this balance sheet. This is the part I don't quite get. Why are they not selling the bonds that they have on the balance sheet to raise rates? Kill 2 birds with 1 stone, lighten the balance sheet, raise rates, everyone's happy.
Yeah, they still have, that's a great point. And we haven't talked about that in a while. It hasn't been, greatly covered, but there is this big, massive balance sheet that has to unwind here. So that's a fair point. I think they probably started talking it from that side, and then it becomes a little bit seamless to the market. But it kind of doesn't matter, right? I think it's 1 or 2 hikes away. Even the Fed referred to a couple more, right? So if we're 1 or 2 hikes away from the end of this, the market has held up, corporate America has held up, earnings are coming in, kind of okay. I really think that we're towards the end of something versus another, kind of year of ongoing pain.
Sylvia, in our first segment, we spoke about AI. You say AI and machine learning continue to be a generational opportunity for investing in the future of tech. What do you think this means for TradFi and for crypto?
Yeah, I mean, I think that AI is going to transform, every sector across the board, right? Whether it's robotics and healthcare, data research, things like this. And I think that, AI can also, benefit crypto in various ways. Everything from, if it becomes globally adopted, for example, being kind of the source of monitoring, kind of credit risk, balance sheet, monitoring perhaps more efficient, mining, trading, pricing. So it's, it kind of remains to be seen how it hits the different sectors and how it kind of plays out. But what I think is that, information and data will be processed more quickly, more efficiently, more abundantly, and that'll allow for, the construct of various things to work out, whether it's regulation of crypto, trading of crypto, custodying of crypto, and, kind of remains to be seen there.
And something else that came up in our first segment, Twitter is rebranding to X, and Dogecoin pumped on the back of that news. Any reaction to that? We always see Dogecoin pumping on Twitter news.
Yeah, I mean, Elon is the master of all things popping, right? I think that rebranding, it's this great, kind of like how will this play out? Will there be ad spend, using Dogecoin? Will there be kind of like purchases and sales? How will this monetize? So, it remains to be seen what he kind of does with it. But, it feels like a meme stock trade to me today.
We got to ask about equities here, because you are not exactly, I guess you're not exactly bullish when it comes to earnings in the S&P 500. Give us your take here and what that means for the overall market. I mean, is this really chilling things out, if you will, in the equities? Is that going to have an effect, and is that going to have an effect ultimately on crypto, which is the only thing anyone watching this show cares about, apparently?
Yeah. So, I'm not actually not bearish on equities. I just think that, year over year, the estimates have fallen. So the expectations for earnings are so low. I actually think that earnings are likely to beat the estimate, the estimates that are kind of out there. So what happens is, if earnings kind of beat, and I think as of last week, we are still, around an 80% of all names that have reported, though it's a small percentage of names that have actually reported, have beat on revenue. So that's, long story short, I think, corporate America is holding up. I think if, the Fed is stable, earnings are coming in, it feels more and more like we're avoiding the soft landing. That FOMO trade comes back into play, and people go out and buy more Bitcoin, and they, go out and buy more Ether, as well as equities and high risk types of, or, what are viewed as higher risk types of stocks.
Sylvia, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining the show this morning. That was Defiance ETF CEO Sylvia Jablonski. Coming up, it's Mining Week here at CoinDesk. We'll take a look at the intersection of AI and mining right after this. Good morning, happy Monday, and welcome back to First Mover. CoinDesk's special Mining Week presented by Foundry is underway. We're taking a closer look at an industry at a crossroads with features on everything surrounding mining, from policy to energy to artificial intelligence. I have to note here, Foundry and CoinDesk are both owned by DCG. Joining us now is author and journalist Jeff Wilser. Exactly, Lawrence. For now. Soon we might have some big news to share. But in the meantime, Jeff Wilser
seems to be scooping that. Welcome, Jeff.
Good morning, guys. Great to be here.
The show. All right, Jeff, you have a new piece out on CoinDesk focused on AI and mining. Are miners pivoting to AI, and why? They seem to have been doing just fine without AI.
Well, it almost connects the two main themes of this morning's show. So, Lawrence, we kick things off if you made an AI joke out of the gate, because it's hard to talk about anything in crypto without AI, right? It's all the time AI, AI, AI. And secondly, you guys have been discussing that Bitcoin's price is kind of slumping, and it has been for a long time, right? So I was kind of wondering, all right, and we already know so many Web3 companies have, quote, pivoted to AI. So it's like, are miners? The short answer is yes and no. The actual ASICs chips themselves that mine Bitcoin, those can't just easily be repurposed. So the home miner who is used to be just chugging along in a mining pool, cranking out Bitcoin, they can't be like, aha, AI is a new thing, I'm doing that. However, the larger companies that have data centers, they've already invested in massive infrastructure. Several of them have explored, okay, we can have economies of scale with security systems, with access to cheap power, with cooling systems, right? So these folks have been able to add data centers and AI computing to the mix to kind of diversify their portfolios.
Is it really AI though? Because look, I mean, I remember back in my days as a business school student, we used to use Excel to do all sorts of truck routings for our information systems classes or whatever it was. I don't remember what they called it back then, but you basically had, you could just do it on Excel. Like what's the most efficient way to route 3 or 4 trucks. And is this really AI if it's stuff that you can do on an Excel spreadsheet?
Yeah, good question. I think the main reason AI comes into play here is the kind of guts of AI, right? The power of how these ChatGPTs and large learning models are working requires a ton of data processing power to train those models, right? So believe me, Lawrence, I'm a huge Excel guy. I love Excel.
Love Excel.
Yes, it's a pivot table all day. Love it.
Yeah.
It's less about trying to find solutions in a program like Excel and more about, okay, if we want to allow some startup to have a text to image machine, right? Where I say, draw me a sword that's dripping with strawberry ice cream, all right? For them to do that, they have to train on massive amounts of data and patterns. Those require high-powered chips. There's also a chip shortage right now. It's one reason why OpenAI is not advancing further along on ChatGPT 4.5 or 5. They're saying we'd like to, but there's a shortage on chips. So some of these previously Bitcoin-only miners are thinking, okay, if we can, given there's a shortage in supply, can we enter that game by providing machine learning, large language model training, processing power to let other AI startups you kind of outsource to use them for their data in the same way folks use Amazon Web Services and the quote cloud to kind of host their data, if that makes sense.
First of all, chips and strawberries, you're starting to get me hungry. Ozempic isn't working. But, here's the thing about all this, as you're talking about this, and I'm thinking to myself, at what point does it make sense to say, you know what, these chips are better off being used for AI than they are for mining? I could probably get more out of it if I sacrifice those mining chips, if you will, to computing power solely for AI. Who cares about crypto? Great, that's wonderful. Who knows what the price is? But I do know everyone's going to be using AI. AI. Why am I going to give it to crypto? Why don't I just do it for something that has high demand?
Yeah, it's a great question. I asked the same thing to many Bitcoin miners, and the smaller folks who are mining at home and using their S19 ASIC or the old school S9, they all told me to a person, these chips are very, very, very good for mining Bitcoin and not very good for anything else, right? So they can't just repurpose their S19 and say, Bitcoin's out, AI is in. They might want to, but physically they just can't. The chips aren't good for it. So it's less about converting old chips into AI and more about the bigger players saying, okay, we actually can't, we have to buy new chips. There's a further investments in chips that will work for training AI models, but they can take their existing kind of the power, the massive plant they built in West Texas or whatever, that can be used to kind of like help the AI processing as well. And they, to your point, Lawrence, that the price of Bitcoin is yo-yoing and so on, they think, okay, now this could help stabilize revenue by adding an additional pie slice to their pie chart of revenue and income.
Let's talk about Ethereum miners. How did the switch from proof of work to proof of stake change things for them? How are we seeing AI incorporated in that?
Yeah, great questions. You know, obviously the Ethereum miners, once they went to stake, they had, okay, wow, we have nothing with these chips to do. So unlike the Bitcoin-focused ASICs, the Ethereum chips, they are a little more generally purposed. They can be doing things besides mine ETH. So the large Bitcoin miners I spoke to, including Hut 8, they said, yeah, we have, Hut 8 used to be mining Ethereum before the switch. They said these chips, they can't do that anymore, obviously, so they can repurpose them for some stuff, and that's better than nothing, so we're not going to like chuck them in a trash can, but it's still not that efficient for AI. So it's borderline useful, but it's not like a silver bullet to suddenly high throttle and high power AI production.
All right, Jeff, we are going to leave it there. Thanks so much for joining the show.
Thank you, guys.
You can read Jeff's entire article on CoinDesk.com. That was author and journalist Jeff Wilser.
The State of Crypto is presented by Tron, connecting the world to the power of cryptocurrency.
A Bank of America report says the split court ruling between the SEC and Ripple Labs does little to clarify the wider crypto regulation situation in the United States. Well, joining us now to discuss is CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day, who is also the editor of the only newsletter outside of mine you should be reading, is State of Crypto newsletter. Welcome, Nick. I got to ask you here, first of all, thank you for coming back. We're worried a whole week without you. I mean, you know, but what's the story now with this Ripple SEC decision? Are we going to get an interlocutory appeal in the next, a few hours or whatever it is that's left?
Hey, good morning. Yeah, good to be back. It does seem like the SEC is going to appeal the decision a federal judge made in ruling on the initial motions for judgment in its case against Ripple. So, obviously it was a split decision, sort of. The question of whether or not the SEC will appeal and whether Ripple will appeal, indeed, that part I think is still unanswered. But SEC has already indicated yes, it is not happy with the full results.
So, and when does this appeal happen? Because I got into a fist fight with Real Vision's Ash Pennington over this. So, when does this happen?
The SEC will file, I think, soon. It sounds like. I haven't seen the actual court documents on that, but it indicated in another court case that the appeal is impending. How long the appeal will take is, I think, another question entirely. We've seen that. Generally when these appeals happen, it could take quite a while for not just the court to, agree to hear the arguments, but to make a decision once those arguments are heard.
But does this, I guess the question here is, does that mean that in the 2 years or so that'll take for the appeal to go through, does that make it like, oh, okay, this is now law, tough, too bad, there's precedents, there's, people are trading these things, oh, everything's fine. It's not really security and, too bad SEC, shove it, Gary Gensler.
I'm sure some people are going to say that, yes, this is the precedent they're looking at. But given the uncertainty around the appeal, and the fact that quite a few crypto lawyers are even saying that the decision itself doesn't really make a lot of sense to them. I think most likely a lot of attorneys, a lot of projects are going to say, okay, we're going to have to continue waiting and seeing, and either A, hope that Congress does something more concrete in that time, or B, see if the SEC itself decides to provide some rulemaking or other forms of guidance that they can point to.
Nick, what does this mean for other U.S. exchanges like Coinbase or Binance?
Well, obviously, those lawsuits are still going on. I think Coinbase has already announced that it will relist XRP in the wake of the decision. If the SEC wins its appeal, then Coinbase will probably have to delist or suspend XRP trading again. If Ripple wins, then obviously that's going to be a huge boost for Coinbase, not just because of XRP, but probably it will also help Coinbase's own legal battle. Although obviously the specific facts are a little bit different for that case. But it's going to be, it could go either way, really.
All right, Nick, we are going to leave it there. Thanks so much for joining the show this morning, and it's great to have you back.
Thanks.
That was CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day. Don't forget to sign up for the State of Crypto newsletter on CoinDesk.com. That's it for First Mover this Monday morning. I'm Jen Sanasi. Thank you to my co-host, Lawrence Lewitton. Lawrence, it's always a pleasure.
Oh, indeed. It's only for me. It must be torture.
Never. All right. We return tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. In the meantime, you can catch the hash today at noon. You're watching CoinDesk TV.